Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, we got a lot of spring games to discuss from over the weekend, but let's start with Coach Prime's debut in Boulder. It was a sold-out Folsom Field, and a lot of those seats were filled by top targets and commits. So what are you hearing coming out of Colorado this weekend?
Yeah, a lot of top targets were in Boulder this weekend, Emily. Beginning on Thursday, when four-star 24/7 Sports Composite four-star athlete Boo Carter returned for his second visit this calendar year. Tennessee is the 24/7 Sports crystal ball favorite. He said Tennessee was his leader a couple weeks ago when I saw him at a 7-on-7. Coming out of this trip, he says everything's 50-50. Said his favorite part was how all the coaches have the same mindset of winning and getting dogs. I love how Coach Prime is changing Colorado, not just as a football team, but as a family. You go around campus and everybody will tell you how good a man Coach Prime is and how he treats them. Aaron Butler was another big time target on campus for Colorado this weekend out of Calabasas High. Oregon has been trending on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball, but this was a return visit to Colorado for him. It was his official visit. He got in late Thursday night, so his visit started on Friday, and he said that Colorado made a move. He said the best way to describe it, the coaching staff stands out to me the most, and how fast everyone in that locker room bought into the program. So Colorado making a move with two of their top targets on campus. Another major recruit for them that was there this weekend is top 247 defensive lineman Brandon Davis-Swain out of the state of Michigan. Emily, he told me he already has his official visit locked in for June 9th. That will be his third time at Colorado as they battle Auburn, Michigan, Purdue, and USC. He's going to take officials to all five schools. But he talked about the opportunity to play for Coach Prime. Loves the atmosphere in Boulder. Has really clicked with the whole coaching staff. Him and his dad had a great experience out there. So those are some guys that Colorado really moved the needle with this weekend.
All right, I want to follow up real quick about Juwan Johnson and his decommitment. What can you tell us the latest on him?
Yeah, so I talked to him after his visit as well, and he had a fabulous time. And he says that Colorado is still one of his top schools. But after he committed to Colorado, a lot of sources said this one's not over. And I think we're going to talk about him a lot when we start talking about LSU because they're certainly in the mix. The Tigers never went away on that one. Juwan visited Colorado earlier this year, fell in love and committed and announced shortly after. Had another good visit this past weekend, but he's ready to continue to go through his process. And LSU is a program that has never gone away in that recruitment and will be one to watch moving forward as Brian Kelly and his staff really emphasize in-state recruiting. They were so national last cycle. They're definitely recruiting their footprint here in 2024.
We'll talk about LSU shortly, but first, how about Notre Dame? A lot of buzz out of South Bend. You have a piece about it on our website, 247sports.com. Be sure to check that out. But what are some of the highlights from the weekend?
Well, Notre Dame, they have the number 8 recruiting class in the country, landed a couple commitments in Cole Mullins out of Mill Creek High School. You turn on our number 1 safety in the country last year in Caleb Downs, you couldn't help but you couldn't miss Cole Mullins and his tenacity off the edge. He was a playmaker for the state champs in the Peach State's largest class, 6'4", 240-pound disruptor around the football. A nice addition for Notre Dame there in the 2024 class. And then the Irish landed their first commit in the 2025 class in defensive lineman Davion Dixon, a 6'3", 290-pound player at the point of attack to get them off and running there. In the 2025 cycle, as Marcus Freeman and company are aiming for their 4th straight top 10 class here in 2024. Obviously, be trying to do that for a 5th time in 2025. But for them to do it in 2024, they need to land more targets, Emily, and they certainly had quite a few of those on campus this weekend. In-state 4-star offensive lineman Styles Prescod returned. I think Notre Dame continues to be the one to beat for him. I thought there was a chance he could maybe commit during his visit. That didn't happen. But he continues to strengthen his relationships with the coaches and recruits. And I continue to like where the Irish stand there. Still love my 24/7 Sports crystal ball for a legacy recruit, Bryce Young, a defensive lineman out of Charlotte Christian. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the next ones in the fold. Obviously, the son of Notre Dame legend Bryant Young He's been to South Bend several times, feels very comfortable with the staff, and loves the stage that they play on and the success that they've had. Recently, it's been about the most success that Notre Dame's had since his dad stalked the sidelines for the Irish back in the early 90s. And I also like Notre Dame for his teammate, Micah Gilbert, top 247 receiver, also out of Charlotte Christian, who told me the environment in South Bend was amazing. A lot of love and excitement was shown by the fans. The ability for Notre Dame to compete for a natty this year excites me the most, and getting Sam Hartman at quarterback is a big part. He said, myself and Irish Illustrated insider Tom Loy logged the 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast for him. And we also did the same for an athlete recruit out of the state of Georgia that Notre Dame likes at receiver in Isaiah Canyon, who's 6'4", 200 pounds. He can really run, Emily. Kind of reminds me of a lot of these bigger receivers that Notre Dame's had so much success with as of late, like Equinemius St. Brown and Miles Boykin. But Canyon told me the atmosphere was amazing. It's just different than many other schools. This is just a whole different dynamic. Everybody there was really cool and seemed to really love football in Notre Dame. So, Notre Dame knocked it out of the park with top targets like top 247 linebacker Kyngston Viliamu-Asa. There's been a lot of good buzz regarding Notre Dame for the coveted linebacker out of powerhouse St. John Bosco in California. I believe they won the national championship this year. Justin Denson's a safety from Rhode Island. I think they're going to have a great shot to land. Same goes for guys like linebacker Bodie Calhoun out of Virginia. And then Davis Andrews is a coveted athlete for them out of the state of Utah. They're also really high on this young man, Oliver Miles from the Lone Star State. And then in 2025, you had Jerome Bettis Jr. on campus, James Flanagan, a tight end from Wisconsin, Anthony Saka, top 247 linebacker from Pennsylvania. I wouldn't be surprised if all those guys are eventually Irish down the road.
Love the legacy guys following in their father's footsteps. Natural transition here. Let's head to the SEC. You mentioned it. Baton Rouge was lively this weekend with spring festivities, of course, recruits in house. So let's start there. LSU landing a 4-star safety in DaShawn McBryde while also hosting probably their top target and 5-star edge Colin Simmons. So what's the latest with those two?
Yeah, DaShawn McBryde, a really good pickup for LSU as the Tigers add to a recruiting class that's ranked number 4 nationally. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a safety that can run and hit. He's an explosive space eater that picked off 9 passes as a junior. Good tackler. Just a rangy athlete that has all the traits to be terrific in the SEC and then beyond. McBryde gives LSU 2 of the top 5 players committed in the state, Emily, and they could get another one on Wednesday. I like where they stand with the number 2 player in the state, one of the top tight ends in America, Trades Green, who's going to announce his college commitment. He's 6'7", 240 pounds. He's an outstanding basketball player, a plus athlete with length, a big catch radius. LSU's been considered the favorite for a long time, and I think when he announces on Wednesday, he will also be in the fold for the Bayou Bengals, and then they will turn their focus to, well, not turn. They've been locked in on the number 1 player in the state, 5-star Dominic McKinley. Tylen Singleton is a safety linebacker type from Manny High School that they're strongly positioned for as they battle Tennessee and Arkansas, among others, for him. Wardell Max, an in-state corner that was back in Baton Rouge for the spring game this weekend. The 24/7 Sports crystal ball favors LSU for him. And we talked about Jawan Johnson earlier in the show. I think that LSU's been working that one big time behind the scenes. But they're also recruiting the state of Texas incredibly hard. You mentioned it. Colin Simmons was back on campus this weekend with his mom. They spent several days on campus, which included a lot of time around prized true freshman DaShawn Womack and his family. And if LSU could have DaShawn Womack and Colin Simmons in the same defense, that's frightening for quarterbacks in the SEC. And then whoever they would potentially play against in the college football playoff. I think the way LSU's recruiting, that is the trajectory of this program. I have a long-standing 24/7 Sports crystal ball on LSU for Colin Simmons, but for the last month or so, I wasn't feeling all that strong about it. His lead recruiter, Jamar Kane, took a job in the NFL, but LSU getting him back on campus, getting him around that coaching staff, guys like Frank Wilson, Sherman Wilson, I think he felt very comfortable at LSU. Talking to several people that spent time around Colin, the returns are incredibly strong. And so I really, again, like my prediction for LSU for one of the most electric edge players, most dominant high school football players in the country. He helped lead Duncanville to a state championship as a junior, and so did his teammate, running back Caden Durham, who I also logged the 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball forecast in favor of LSU for this morning, right before we jumped on the air and started recording. He rushed for nearly 2,000 yards and 36 touchdowns as a junior. Emily, these are two of the biggest stars in Texas high school football this past year. They could end up both at LSU. And one more name to mention out of the state of Texas, top 247 receiver Draylon Miller was back this weekend. LSU's in a great spot. I'm not ready to throw my crystal ball prediction in, although if I had to make one today, it would be LSU. But I'm not sleeping on USC for him. Lincoln Riley and the Trojans have given Draylon Miller a lot to think about as well.
Tiger fans probably holding their breath a little bit when you said you weren't sure about that crystal ball for Colin Simmons, but it sounds like all is well there. Well, like LSU, Alabama also hosting some top targets and landing a commitment, two birds, one stone. The Tide locked up four-star linebacker Caden Jones. What are you hearing out of Tuscaloosa this weekend?
Well, no program hosted a more star-studded group of recruits this past weekend than Alabama's. Five stars and blue chippers flocked to Tuscaloosa. Alabama, they have the pound-for-pound #1 ranked recruiting class in the country, Emily, and you know that's my favorite metric. Their average ranking per commit is 95.42. That leads the nation. And Caden Jones is the latest. He's been on varsity since the 8th grade, a relentless player. He can rush the passer, can stuff the run, can play in space. Nice pickup for them. And then when you look at the guys that they had on campus for their spring game, you know, their commits, they had three of those five stars. Julian Sand, who loved being back, said that he continues to be excited by the program and feels it's the best place for him to win the championship. Two other five-star commits, Perry Thompson, a receiver from in-state, and Jalen Mbakwe, an athlete from in-state that could shine on both sides of the ball. But Alabama, you know, he talked about Alabama's secondary and watching them. Those are guys that have taken visits elsewhere. You know, Perry Thompson is looking at Auburn, looking at Tennessee. You know, Jalen Mbakwe's been to LSU. But those guys getting back for A-Day, getting back around the program, they loved being back at Alabama, and it certainly reminded both of them of what they love about the Crimson Tide as they continue through their process. And I don't know if you saw the video, Emily, of Nick Saban pulling up to Bryant Denny there in the Mercedes, and guess who gets out of the car with him? Demarcus Riddick, the #2 linebacker in the country. He's currently committed to Georgia. But I talked to a source close to Riddick last night that told me that he thought that Alabama has a great shot to pull Riddick away from the Bulldogs. Auburn's trying to do it as well. There was a time where maybe I thought Auburn had a better chance to flip Riddick from Georgia, but now I would say Alabama has that better chance to flip Riddick from Georgia. So definitely one to monitor moving forward. Some other big names that were on campus included five-star edge Jordan Ross, who Alabama continues to be one of his favorite schools alongside Tennessee and Auburn and Georgia, LSU to name a few others. Jaden Redell is one of the most coveted tight ends in the country from Missouri. He's been to Alabama 3 times now, twice this calendar year. My crystal ball's on Georgia, but I'm not sleeping on the Vols or Crimson Tide for Jaden Redell going into his June official visits to all 3 of those programs. Jeremiah Beeman's a top 247 in-state defensive lineman that's been on campus numerous times. He'll official in June. Alabama's got a great chance there. Kevin Riley from Tuscaloosa County, a top 247 running back from nearby. You know, he's excited to watch what Alabama does this year, but it's obvious that Alabama's on his short list as well. And then Alabama hosted so many 5-stars in the 2025 class. The #1 overall player in the country, David Sanders, it's obvious the Crimson Tide are on his short list. Georgia, Ohio State, South Carolina, some of the others he's looking hard at. And I think Alabama may lead for the #1 corner in the 24/7 Sports Composite, Emily, and Devin Sanchez. I know he also likes Ohio State and Oklahoma, but talking to him and his dad, they gushed about the visit as well. Alabama trying to flip Jonte Gilbert, the #2 safety in the land from Ohio State. He had a fabulous visit. Jaden Perlottes, another linebacker committed to Georgia in 2025 that was there. Alabama has him thinking too. So big weekend at Bryant Denny. A lot of 5-stars on campus. Alabama, as you would expect, moved the needle with these young men. And Emily, they're going to have one of the best classes in the country again. Maybe pound for pound, the best one when all said and done. Which should come to no surprise to anybody.
I mean, everything you said was spectacular, but it just sounds like another weekend in Tuscaloosa. I mean, this is just what they do, is bring in these 5-stars to campus. Let's see if they land some of them. We got one more stop to make in the SEC. That is Arkansas. Sam Pittman and company adding to their top 15 class with 4 commitments. Charleston Collins, Jaden Allen, Courtney Crutchfield, and Travis Metcalf all joining the fold. What can you tell us about these 4 additions?
Yeah, number 11 class in the country right now. And Sam Pittman's one of the more exciting, energetic head coach recruiters on the trail. And Charleston Collins was a big recruiting win for them because at one point I thought he was LSU bound, had offers from just about everybody in the SEC. And he's one of the more physically ready defensive linemen to come in and play on day one. This is a young man that had 124 tackles as a junior. That's pretty darn good for a defensive lineman. Those are linebacker tackle stats for a player at the point of attack that can play D tackle or DN. 12 sacks. He forced 5 fumbles. He's just a disruptor across the front with that college-ready body. Jaden Allen's a cornerback from Aledo, Texas, state champion. 11 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble as a junior. I love his change of direction and burst, his instincts, his ability to break on the football. He's still developing physically. I think he's going to be a much more, I think he'll be faster in college than he is now, but I love the traits and instincts and quickness he brings to the table right now. Courtney Crutchfield is a 6'2", 200-pound receiver that flashes on both sides of the ball. Arkansas could play him in the secondary. I wouldn't be mad at him, but he averaged nearly 30 yards per catch on 16 receptions. 8 of them went for touchdowns in 7 games as a junior. Also picked off a couple passes, flies to the football, physical upon arrival. I just like the way he plays the game. And then Travis Metcalf's a very competitive cornerback from the state of Alabama that we liked at the All-America Bowl Combine, named him to our national combine team at Tennessee. And so Arkansas, one of the hottest teams in the country on the trail, up to number 11 in the 24/7 Sports rankings.
Whew, how about that? All right. I mentioned at the top of the show, 4-star defensive lineman Heaven Brown-Schuler committing to Clemson over the weekend right here on our 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. The Tigers also landing another commitment from linebacker Drew Woodaz out of Florida. So what is Dabo getting in these 2 2024 defenders?
Well, Heaven Brown-Schuler was one of the first prospects in this entire class to emerge nationally. He's a guy that Clemson had been on for a long time. Coach Goodwin and company getting one of their top targets, a twitchy, powerful player up front that can be disruptive for them. And then Drew Woodaz, I like this pickup for him, for them out of Tampa Jesuit there. He's like a safety linebacker rover type. He's a punishing hitter on film, 92 tackles, 12 pass breakups, picked off a couple passes, forced some fumbles, blocked some kicks. A guy that seems to get to the football in a hurry, but with a knack for making plays. That's going to bring some versatility to Clemson's defense for years to come.
All right, let's finish with a quick whip around the country with Oklahoma, Tennessee, Nebraska, and USC also landing commitments in the past couple of days. What can you tell us about these big gets?
Yeah, so Oklahoma offensive line's a priority for them this cycle. They went into SEC country, state of Mississippi, and landed Isaiah Autry, beating Ole Miss, Auburn, Florida State, among others for him. And then Jaden Hardy out of Lewisville, Texas, is a defensive back that I think can play corner, safety, or nickel on the next level. Saw him dominate in that facet at a recent overtime OT7 regional event in Austin, Texas. And Oklahoma, they're trying to turn around a defense that ranked 129th nationally in college football last year, recruited very well last cycle. Jaden Hardy was one of their top targets this cycle. He's a Tennessee legacy that's going to play against the Vols in the SEC for the Sooners. Tennessee, they landed an intriguing body type, Jeremiah Hurd out of the Peach State, an enormous guy that they're going to start on defense, but could also have the traits to play offense. Now, it's going to take a while in the hopper for him, but he's a really good basketball player. And with that athleticism and size and what he can do on a basketball court, that's the kind of jumbo athlete you take a chance on. How about Nebraska going into the Sunshine State and landed Miami legacy Willis McGahee Jr., who had 80 tackles, 13 sacks, 5 forced fumbles as a junior. He can rush the passer, a high-motored player that can really run. An interesting pickup for Nebraska here and Matt Rule and company. We know they love players that fit that speed profile, and there's not many linebackers that run as well as he does. And then USC, They like to find their running backs in the state of Texas, don't they? Under Lincoln Riley and company, and Brian Jackson out of McKinney's the latest to join the fold. Over 1,600 yards rushing as a junior, Emily, with 23 touchdowns. He is a 240-pound freight train out there that's going to be extremely tough to tackle. And as they transition to the Big Ten, he kind of fits the mold of so many of those bigger backs that we've seen in the Big Ten. That's an intriguing pickup for USC here. And then Penn State going off script for one. They landed a commitment this morning. Have the nation's number 7 recruiting class. Garrett Sexton, the latest to join the fold, a high upside tackle that can bend and move. Chose Penn State over Oklahoma, Iowa, among others. Penn State top 10 class coming off a season where they won 11 games, won the Rose Bowl with college football playoff aspirations this year. Their offensive line's as good as I've seen it in the James Franklin era, and they want to keep it that way, Emily.
Love it. Sounds like a busy weekend in the recruiting world. Steve, thanks for breaking it all down for us. Thank you.